Welcome to the station wagon. I'm the older brother, Marc.
And I'm little sister Julie. This is the podcast where my brother and I give up something we take for granted and tell you how it goes.
Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Do it. Do the podcast. Pebbles, I can't play with you.
Wait, what?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is the podcast where we pick something that we take for granted, give you the history and science of it, and then tell you what happens when we give it up for a couple of weeks. And this time we are going to be giving up...
Killing time with screen time.
That's right. We are going to deliberately be alone with our thoughts, and it's going to really stink, I think, but that's maybe not. So, Marc, you usually give me a quiz to start things off. Let's do it.
All right. Julie.
Marc.
Which extremely popular sitcom had an episode called Boring?
The Young Ones.
Start over. These are always multiple choice.
But it's
always.
My favorite. It's my
Every
favorite.
time they are multiple choice.
It's my favorite TV show of all time. So, I mean, okay fine.
Start over. Which extremely popular sitcom had an episode called Boring? The Golden Girls, The Addams Family, or All in the Family?
None.
That's right. It was The Young Ones.
Well, do you know for a fact that none of those actually had an episode called Boring?
No.
You should do some Googling before you write a quiz, dude. Yes, The Young Ones, probably not as popular as we like to think, even though it is our favorite of ours.
All right, you ready for number 2? You actually got that right. Good job.
Number 2.
God. God. What is the name, and you're done being a middle schooler now?
Yeah.
What is the name of the camp that exists to help adults detox from their technology fixations? Is it called Camp Half-Blood, Camp Grounded, or Camp Cosplay Over?
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna... Wait, what was it? Camp Half-Blood?
Yeah, A is Camp Half-Blood, Camp Grounded, or Camp Cosplay Over.
I'll go with Camp Grounded.
Yes, it's Camp Grounded. Camp Half-Blood was, of course, from the Percy Jackson series, and Camp Cosplay Over is from the Teen Girls Squad on Homestar Runner.
Oh my gosh, that's a deep one.
Yeah, thank you. And so Camp Grounded is a place where adults can go for the weekend, and they don't have any electronics or any way for you to communicate with the outside world. So you can so-called detox from your addictions to electronics. Hopefully they have like counselors on hand for going through the detox. Right, for the shakes, exactly.
By the way, if I get this one right, it will be my high score of all times. I've never gotten 3 out of 3.
Well, you know what? So far, isn't it already your high score at 2 out of 3?
Yes.
Okay, good job.
I'm just saying. This is awesome.
All right. So since we're talking about giving up we're talking about giving up screen time for killing time. Giving up killing time. What are we doing? We are going to be giving up killing time with screen time. Of course, when you use your screen, you're tilting your head down at a weird angle, right?
Yeah.
So this last question is, how much additional weight or strain do you put on your neck when looking at your phone? Is it 10 pounds, 30 pounds, or 60 pounds? Or 200 pounds?
No, 10 pounds.
It's 60 pounds.
What? That's not science.
Sure, it is science, and I have a reference. It's from the Journal of Surgical Technology International.
That sounds legit.
It sounds pretty legit. It's a peer-reviewed journal. So they said that 60 pounds is roughly the weight of 4 adult-sized bowling balls, 6 plastic grocery bags worth of food, or an 8-year-old.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, I mean, be careful with your phone, Julie. And listeners.
And listeners. But what if I walk around or sit with it like held out directly in front of me?
I think that's okay.
Strengthening my joints and stuff.
Yeah. If you use your core, I think that's totally cool.
Awesome.
Also, if you do that thing where I saw a picture of a kid who had his device like face down on a glass table. And he was lying underneath the glass table looking up at it. That was pretty cool.
Okay.
Hey, yeah, that was a meme you used, wasn't it, in one of our tweets?
Possibly. Sounds like it.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
Well, that
if you
was
like getting
yeah.
funny humor, or maybe not so funny. I think it's funny humor every day. I don't know. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Was that not
so
convincing?
that was not very convincing. And I think they're very funny. And there are ones of people out there who also think it's funny.
Excellent. It's usually in the tens. So that's
It
pretty
usually is. Julie, that was great. You did really, really well. You got 2 out of 3 on that quiz. Hopefully, listeners, you did too.
One of these days, it's going to happen for me.
Hey, Julie, do you want to move on to history?
Yeah.
So what I put together here was history all about various screens and boredom.
Okay.
Because that's what this is really all about, combining those 2 passions of yours.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so 1959, the very first Etch-a-Sketch was invented. Did you know that?
I did not. I love Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah, me too. What's the coolest thing that you ever drew on an Etch-a-Sketch?
A staircase.
Oh my God, that's awful.
What about you?
I don't know. A turtle, I think.
Okay, probably. I could see you doing that.
That 1950s was interesting, kind of a cultural shift in America where parents started taking on responsibility for their children's boredom. So like before...
Really? That early?
Yeah, so it used to be, before then, it was more like a character trait. Like, Julie, you would have grown up with your parents telling you things like, now, Julie, don't be boring when you talk to so-and-so Knight of the Realm.
Right. Actually, if I was a kid, I wouldn't even be allowed to talk.
No, that's probably true, especially considering who you are.
Yeah.
But nowadays, or since the 50s, it changed to a state where it's somebody else's responsibility. So if somebody is bored, it's because somebody did it to them, and it focused on the parents as being the biggest reasons for a kid being bored.
Okay, wait. Are you saying the parents were in charge of making sure that the children weren't boring, or they were making sure that the children weren't bored?
Making sure that the children weren't bored.
Okay, why?
Why? There was a rampant consumerism starting up at that time, and a big push from marketing companies to sell stuff to parents for their children. Lots of toys and things were starting to be marketed towards kids via the parents. And so I think it was a big foundation in consumerism.
I wonder if following World War II, there was just, like better resources available, and our nation was more affluent. Plus, children weren't as busy as they were during the war years.
Yeah, it could be.
Collecting
Julie, if you
want
to,
I don't know, maybe that's World War I.
Scrap metal. If you want to, Julie, if you want to learn
hats.
more about it, you can go and read Childhood in World History, 3rd edition.
Okay,
and I have a
you.
link on our site about that.
I'd rather just ask you questions.
Yeah, feel free. I'll just make up more stuff about it.
Perfect. So like during that time, they would be like, oh, you're out of school. Well, let's figure out an activity for you. Like,
let's
make
Nestle Toll House cookies.
So like Pinteresting things.
Yes, whatever the 1950s equivalent of that is.
Gotcha. See, I'm putting it in context of screens.
Oh, I love it. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. 1964, Isaac Asimov predicted that the human race would be incurably bored. And there's a great quote that I'm going to read to you. Mankind will suffer badly from the disease of boredom, a disease spreading more widely each year and growing in intensity. This will have serious mental, emotional, and sociological consequences, and I dare say that psychiatry will be far and away the most important medical specialty in 2014. The lucky few who can be involved in creative work of any sort will be the true elite of mankind, for they alone will do more than serve a machine.
So like Asimov predicted that we would all just be like, okay, well, our food and welfare and our hierarchy of needs are all taken care of by these robots.
Exactly. So, and I'd like to know what your profession is, Julie.
I'm a psychologist.
Point
not
proven.
A psychiatrist.
Proven.
You got it.
So 1992, IBM introduced the very first smartphone called Simon. And it included a calendar, address book, fax, modem, calculator, notepad, an email app, and some simple games.
Oh my gosh, how much was it?
It was like $1,500 or so. And it was
how big?
Right. So it was about the same size as one of those very first early phones. That
Do you remember when Mulder and Scully
Yes.
pulled out?
Yeah, from the X-Files, right. Well, when I got out of college, I was selling audio equipment at Highland Superstore in Indianapolis. And we sold those old school phones.
My God.
We were still selling the kind that were like the big giant brick at that point.
Oh, that's incredible.
Pretty neat. But yeah, so very first screen
Simon.
smartphones, so-called. 2015, Marc Burton, MD, wrote a nice summary for ways to use a smartphone mindfully. So what's interesting here about the next few references to me is that in 2014, 2015, people are realizing that smartphones are taking away mindfulness, taking away boredom, taking away these sort of normal ways that human beings actually work and operate and need to work and operate. And so people are starting to write lots of stuff, research or helpful articles like Dr. Burton's here about how to use the technology for your own betterment. So for example, in his article, there's practicing mindfulness apps, support healthy habits apps, change, and even like changing your technology habits.
Yep.
So, and in your own work, you're part of that movement, aren't you, Julie?
I am, but I
Proven.
can't. But I'm not allowed to speak to it unless I have a public affairs officer approve my statements.
Oh, is that right?
You can Google Julie Ken. Oh, you know what? We should link to that time I got to present with Deepak Chopra.
Okay.
His presentation and mine are both available online, but you have to download them. You can't stream them.
That's ridiculous. All right. I will do that. We'll put that in the speaker's notes, or show notes, I mean. All right, 2016, a great new product appeared called the No Phone. Have you heard of this?
No.
Oh, it's so awesome. But essentially what it is.
Sounds stupid.
It actually, in 2016, appeared on Shark Tank to get funding. They already had some funding and were selling it, but they wanted to get big. And I think they're getting pretty big now. I saw an article in Fortune magazine about them. What's included is one no phone, one instruction manual on how not to use it.
Oh my gosh.
More of your attention, real friends, and what's not included is texting your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend, location tracking, data
You're just
overages.
reading stuff now.
I know, it's pretty awesome though. So essentially what it is a hunk of plastic that's weighted to be similar in size and shape to an iPhone or typical Android phone.
So you have like the kinesthetic appeal of, I'm holding a thing.
Right, exactly. I'm holding a thing, and they say that you always have a rectangle of smooth, cold plastic to clutch without foregoing any potential engagement with your direct environment.
So it's like a modern security blanket.
Yeah, exactly right. And from reading about this and some other things, it sounds like besides just the usage of smartphones for their actual functions, I mean, people
You
use
could
them.
Smash bugs.
No, people use them like security blankets or like,
right.
What are those things called? Those stones that you can rub with your finger when you're stressed out?
Finger rubbing stone.
Yes, except they're called something else.
It's called no stone.
Oh, God. But it's like that. I mean, haven't you ever just like had your phone in your hand, you're not using it, but you're just kind of, I don't know, touching it lovingly?
Absolutely.
See, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do.
Yeah, so this is a replacement for that, to give you that kinesthetic feeling that just having your phone in your hand gives you.
All right.
And it's actually been being used with people or by people who are trying to get off of their cell phone use and so-called detox themselves from cell phone use so that they still have that feeling and they don't have to have that, quote, unsettling feeling of flesh on flesh when closing your hand.
Ew.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, of your own.
Of your own hand. Right. I love it.
Okay, fair enough.
It's great.
Let's move beyond that.
Shall we move on now?
Yes.
Okay, last thing. Oh, no, actually, second to last thing. 2016, an invention called Pause. What Pause was invented. Have you heard of this?
No. I mean, the word, yes.
Oh, geez. It was designed. It's basically like some kind of metal box that's stylish, quote unquote, that you can put in your house. And what you do is when you have company over, you tell them to put all their devices in it. You seal the box.
Everyone loves that.
Yeah, right. You seal the box, and then the phones don't operate anymore. It blocks all Wi-Fi, incoming signals, text messages, blah, 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 so that you can have real, true interactions, Julie. Wouldn't you love that when we're together in person? That like when you look into my eyes, you really see the sibling hostility there and you're not wondering what's happening on your phone?
It sounds like a hostage situation.
Yeah, it doesn't sound...
Like, come on in, leave your shoes there, your keys there,
right.
all electronics in this box.
Right, empty your wallet into this bin.
Right, exactly.
Let's see. So final thing, 2016, study links mobile device addiction to depression and anxiety.
What? Who wrote that?
It was published in this little journal you may have heard of called Computers in Human Behavior.
Yes, I have.
From the University of Illinois psychology professor Alejandro Leiras.
Leiras.
Yeah. And he found that mobile device addiction is associated with depression and anxiety. And basically, he tested it on college students. And it suggests that mobile technology may be utilized as a security blanket, just like we were talking about before, in the face of stress. But the important thing is it doesn't necessarily alleviate stress using it. So unlike an actual security blanket or the lovey that you carry around with yourself, Julie.
Or like whatever it is that you're banging on right now.
Yeah. Can you hear that? Sorry.
That's okay.
That's my dog running crazy. Pebbles.
Aw.
Oh,
allow it.
She's being chased by a cat.
Oh, well, totally understandable.
Oh, great. And now there's 2 cats in here. Pebbles, leave it.
Do you own 2 cats?
I do have 2 cats.
Okay, just checking.
But anyway, yeah, the cell phones are super interesting because people think, kind of like Facebook, you think it's this positive outlet, but it turns out using it makes you more anxiety-ridden and depressed.
Sometimes.
Every time, all the time. Unless you're unless like you're being chased by a bear and you call the police and that will
anti-bear squad.
The anti-bear squad, and they come out and help get rid of the bear, and then your anxiety and depression will go away.
Well,
that's the only time that it'll work.
Can I get into the science stuff?
Oh, please do.
Okay, because that was a good
Is now in the time in the podcast when you get into science stuff?
Now is the time when I get into science stuff.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so first of all...
Do you want me to put my phone on mute?
No, thank you.
Okay.
So I could just talk.
Right, exactly.
No, thanks. Okay, first, what happens to you when you're with your phone, without your phone for a few hours? Has that ever happened to you? Like lately, have there been times that you can think of?
Yeah, so... The biggest time it happens is when I forget it. Like I'll leave the house and just forget it. And it's only usually like a few minutes because instantly I turn my car around and head home to get it.
Okay, wait. Would you rather be a few minutes late to work and have your phone, or leave your phone at home and not be late?
A few minutes late to work.
Oh my gosh. I bet that's true for a lot of our listeners too.
Yeah, totally. I can't imagine going through a day without my phone, to be totally transparent about it.
Well,
I love it. I love it as much or more than my entire family.
Well, that is not true, I know. But you might interact with it more than the rest of your family. Do you use it as an alarm clock?
I do.
So it's like the first thing that you interact with every morning.
Yes, it is. It's the first thing I interact with in the morning and the last thing I interact with at night.
Okay.
Oh my God, it is. Holy crap.
Let's say you're at work and you find out, this meeting's going to start 5 minutes late. So everyone just sit tight. What do you do with your phone?
So the first thing I do is I just go and see if there's any kind of work-related emails that I should be checking.
Uh-huh.
And then after that, I'll, if I really have a lot of time, I'll whip up Minecraft.
Okay. So you've got games on there.
Yeah, I've got games on there. And so like Minecraft for me is like the adult coloring book phenomenon for normal people.
Wait, I have a question. Are your work emails received on your personal phone?
Yeah, totally. When I subscribe to work email, work has the ability to wipe my entire phone if I ever lost it or if they needed to for some reason.
Okay, so that's an interesting aspect of your technology use, is that it probably makes it even harder to separate work life and to separate yourself from your phone just in general, because you can always think of it as, I'm just picking up my phone to make sure there's no work emails. And while I'm here, after I see there's no work emails, what's going on Facebook?
Right, exactly. Why? Do you have like 2 cell phones?
Yeah, we have. Well, I work for the government, so everything's separate.
Okay, so tell me about that. You have one cell phone.
That's the end.
Oh, that's the end. So you have one cell phone for personal use that never gets used because unpopular, and then you have another cell phone for business use.
I'm very popular sometimes with myself. I
good.
send myself messages from my 2 Facebook accounts.
Oh, good.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so it sounds like when you're bored or you just have a few minutes, you immediately first check work and then play games. Are there ever times that you just kind of sit and be? I hate that. I'm totally really the same.
I know, right? I mean, sit and be. What do you mean? Like just sit and stare off into the distance?
Right. I mean, like, I guess I would do it if I had to. I mean, I'm not going to like just go to sleep in the middle of work, but if I have my phone there, I'm
Right.
going to pick it up and look at it.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
I have like the few things I scroll between. I'll always start with Facebook, and then I'll check email and Twitter and Washington Post. And then I'll look on Facebook one more time to make sure there's nothing new. And then at that point, I found myself being like, oh, what do I do now? I've looked at all the things. Or when I'm scrolling through Facebook, if I start seeing posts I saw earlier in the morning, I'm like, oh no, there's no more content.
So is
I
that
mean-
is that when you start making new memes for Twitter when you have when
Exactly.
you've seen all the things that have come into you and you've gone through it all? Okay, cool.
Right. And so this is why I wanted to do this topic, because I recognize that that's not so healthy. And my research kind of vindicated that idea. Okay, so first of all, phones are important. Our smartphones, we're talking about other kinds of devices too, like tablets and things. And like you said before, this is part of my work. And so I know these are important, but they're also what is known as a key social object in the literature.
Key
Because
social object.
these
okay.
days, this is what we use to communicate, right? So your work email is on there, texts, important things. If Kendra needs you, I'm guessing the first way she's going to try to get you is by a text message or possibly a call to your phone, right?
Yeah, totally.
So it's definitely key, and it's clearly very important. So we can't just chuck them in the trash. Okay, and our phones are important because they keep us informed and connected, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's talk about distraction and killing time.
Uh-huh.
So in general, distraction is not always a bad thing. Like you were saying before, it's not bad once in a while to distract yourself. Can you think of a case in which it's good to be distracted?
Yes, when you just broke your toe trying to record a podcast episode.
Absolutely. When you're in physical pain, like you were, I don't know what episode that was, 5 or something, you'll never let us, you break your toe one time recording an
I
episode.
know, right? It's the
Yeah,
gift
for
that keeps
sure.
on giving.
So distraction's also important if you're prone to harmful impulse behaviors. So people who cut themselves or might potentially act out on others in anger. Basically, distraction, not just talking about phones, but just distraction in general can be a way to have a timeout as a grown-up. And phones certainly can fulfill that. In fact, that organization you talked about before deliberately puts distraction in some of their apps. And also distraction can help with depression and anxiety at times too, because it helps take people out of that rumination that we talked about in one of our episodes, where you just kind of keep thinking over and over about the bad stuff, and it just gets bigger and bigger and more emotional. So distraction can take you out of that cycle. So there are some good reasons to be distracted, and our devices can certainly help us with that. But the flip side of that is mindfulness. And you and I, we talk about our podcast a lot as a mindfulness podcast, because it's all about building insight. And what mindfulness is focusing your attention on the present moment. And that's what we do in this silly podcast, is we
Totally.
look at the things we take for granted, right?
And in fact, I just told somebody the other day when they asked about mindfulness, because we had a speaker about it recently. I said, yeah, I'm a mindfulness street practitioner. Totally. I'm with you, Julie.
That sounds super legit.
Totally legit.
When you're not distracting yourself and there's nothing happening, two things can happen. One is mindfulness and the other is boredom. So so mindfulness certainly is a positive sounding thing, and boredom certainly has a negative connotation, right? That sounds pejorative, but they're both really valuable. And I think we need to spend some time getting bored, like you were saying before, and being mindful, both. So mindfulness, like I said, focusing attention, blah, 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 blah. Practitioners use mindfulness. So, I mean, behavioral health providers and physical health providers, behavioral medicine, physical medicine use mindfulness in conjunction with treatment for depression, for anxiety, for addiction, just really helping build insight and helping people be more aware of, in the moment, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? Why do I have this impulse? Also, mindfulness, when used while eating, can reduce binge eating, and it's also really helpful as part of weight loss. So let me ask you, in your most recent meal, what did you do while you were eating? The most recent meal that you ate alone.
I worked.
Okay.
I checked email and responded to email.
All right. Yep.
So how does that go for your theory?
Yeah, that's not so great.
No.
I mean, I always entertain myself while I'm eating. I try never to work while I eat, just because if I'm like doing something anxiety provoking, I'll get a tummy ache. But
You're so sensitive.
I'll always read a book or look at my phone or just something like enjoyable while I'm eating, and I very deliberately take a break and I put on my headphones so no one talks to me. It's just like my own time. And if anyone comes near me, I bite them. But so there's a downside to our approaches, which is if you're not mindfully eating, and that means paying attention to the bites you're eating and the food that's going in, you're not really paying attention to when you're full. You're not paying attention to how much you eat or how you're eating it. You can really end up scarfing down your food and eating way more than you need to eat in the case of binge eating or overeating. So do you remember this study? It was pretty recent, like 2011, but it was a big study about stale popcorn.
No.
Okay, it's this great study. They took people, put them in a movie theater, and put popcorn next to them. And half the popcorn was stale, and half the popcorn was fresh. So for half of the participants got stale popcorn, and half the participants got fresh popcorn.
Awesome. Okay.
And then they measured, while people were watching movies, how much of the popcorn did they eat. People who are habitual popcorn eaters, so just every time they go to the movie theater, they always buy popcorn. It's just part of their routine. Those people ate the same amount of popcorn, whether it was stale or fresh. They just didn't care. They were like, human. The people who are not habitual popcorn eaters, like it's not part of their thing, so it's like a different thing for them. And I believe also, I'll have to go reread this study because it's been a while. Also, people who they made them use their non-dominant hand, they ate only fresh popcorn. So it's like when it's just super easy and you just have this popcorn delivery method. And so I could see, so for me, I think I've mentioned every episode that I eat a peanut butter sandwich and Doritos like every single day.
Yes.
Lunch. So with the Doritos, I have to take them out of the bag and put them on a plate and then put the bag away. Because otherwise, without even realizing it, I'll just be reaching in that bag and like eating all the Doritos.
Okay.
And you never really get to the point. I never really get to the point where I'm like, oh, I fulfilled my Dorito need. You know, there's never like, have reached Dorito level satisfaction. No, it's like, no, I'm still hungry for more Doritos. Sure, I could fit in a few. So anyway, mindful eating, I think, is an important aspect of my health that I've been ignoring. What about you? Would you say you're a mindful eater?
Oh, yeah, totally. We're vegetarian. So every meal that, if we're going out or preparing it at home, we're always thinking about how to get a mixture of carbs and proteins and vegetable fiber and nutrients and stuff.
Yeah, but what about while you're eating it?
While I'm eating it, depends on how delicious it is. So, for example, for breakfast today, I had a protein bar, not delicious. And I didn't have to be mindful about quantity because it was just a very limited quantity. So I could just basically chew it. And the only thing I was mindful about was making sure that, like I chewed each bite.
You chew food.
Like I masticated like 12 times each before swallowing.
Okay, great.
And then I kind of wallered the piece of protein bar around in my mouth for a while before swallowing.
Okay, I wish I hadn't asked. All right, let's talk about bored. Oh, wait, one more thing about mindfulness. There are lots of good apps out there. Virtual Hope Box, which is one I'm going to be using. I really recommend it. It's a great app.
Real Hope Chest.
What's it called?
A Real Hope Chest. You know, it's
a
chest.
You mean like the old-fashioned chest that women would put all their linens in that they'd work on until they were married?
Yes, exactly.
Great. Perfect. Great example. All right. Now let's talk about boredom. So, boredom. Can you think of anything good?
Bored. Even mindless violence seems boring today, Julie.
Very good quote from the young ones. Thank you, Vivian.
Yes.
All right. Can you think of anything good about being bored?
No.
Oh, that was not a great podcasting noise. Okay. So boredom helps us be creative.
Really? It doesn't just help you be bored?
What happens when you're bored and you have nothing to distract yourself?
You gain learned helplessness.
You just start thinking about stuff.
Oh.
So I'd like you to think about, when do your biggest breakthroughs come out? When do you come up with your best ideas? Where are you?
Brainstorming with coworkers, and it's a very lively discussion.
Okay. For a lot of people,
that's true.
I believe it because your coworkers are awesome. For a lot of people, it's when they're in the shower, when they're driving, or when they're on the toilet.
No, see, you brought it up earlier in the episode about something about like how it's nice to be alone with your thoughts. I don't like to be alone with my thoughts.
No, I was joking about that. I don't like being alone with my thoughts either, but it's not pleasurable to me, but I'll get into why that is in a second. But first, okay, so maybe you have
No, I disagree with you.
Yeah.
I'm not bored when I'm I'm not most creative when I'm bored. Wrong.
Okay. Well, you are
Dead
a Cylon
wrong.
because for others, that's when we get to be most creative. Remember we talked about the not going outside episode, how a lot of times people say if you need a creative solution, just get up and take a walk. It's because that's letting your mind wander and just think about a problem. For me, I love using my Google Keep recorder. And when I'm driving, if I don't have a podcast on, that's when I come up with bits for my stand-up routines or blog post ideas. Same thing with like in the shower and other places like that. It really, for me, it definitely helps creativity. And so I'm looking forward to a couple of weeks of extra creativity. And also like just in that between meeting time, you know, when you're waiting for meetings to start, you and I both attend a lot of meetings. Yes. Instead of playing Minecraft, if you just sit down, what I like to do, and I'm going to try to get back in this habit over the next couple of weeks is that's when I draft blog post ideas because we do write a couple of blogs for my work. And so I'm always trying to come up with ideas for that. So I'm going to try to harness that creative energy.
You know, for me, so are we done? Are we going to be talking
No,
about
I have one more thing.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the other thing about boredom, oh, it's okay. I'll just cut out some of your history to make time for it.
Perfect.
So the other thing about boredom is that it helps us process the day's events. So in those in-between spaces, if you just go from every conversation and every activity to listening to a podcast, to playing Minecraft, to listening to music, you don't get a chance to think and feel about big things and little things, your to-do list, your happy stuff, your sad stuff, that weird conversation you had when you were in someone's way in front of the door and you felt awkward and you don't want to think about that. So you start listening to a podcast or, oh, shoot, I need to remember to reserve.
So like, are you saying that boredom is a way that your body, or is a time period or an actual process that your body takes on while you're awake that's sort of similar to what happens when you're asleep, where your subconscious processes the day's activities?
A little bit. What I was about to say is that if you don't have time to do that thinking during the day, not necessarily when you're bored, most people probably wouldn't call that boring time, just in those in-between points, then when you do think about it is when you're lying in bed at night trying to go to sleep. When you're lying in bed at night, you're not being entertained unless you're like blackout drunk.
Oh, God.
And you're just, because some people do that because some people can only get to sleep after drinking a quantity of alcohol because they want to shut off their brain.
The more alcohol you drink, the harder it is to get onto regular sleep patterns, isn't it?
Absolutely. And so I don't know if it's a direct one-to-one correlation. There's probably a plateau that you reach. But yeah, for sure. So it's
vicious
not good.
Cycle. Yep.
A nice thing that happens is if you allow yourself to do your thinking during the day and you don't just keep putting off that time with your own brain, it makes it so that it's a lot easier to get to sleep at night. Or at least that's what my hope is. I hope that works for me because I'm definitely one of those people who I love podcasts especially. And so I'm always going to be listening to one in those in-between moments. Right. And I'm kind of looking forward to lying in bed at night and not having those little nagging thoughts because I've already thought about them.
I hope it works out for you because it's going to suck.
Okay, so what are we going to do specifically?
Me, I know. I'm going to not look at I'm not going to fill up those unanticipated downtimes by looking at my phone. And by what I mean by that is like those times like, I don't know, when I need to leave the house and my children are taking a little bit extra too long to get their shoes on.
Right.
In that brief time period, I would take my phone out and check something.
Yeah, totally.
So that's an example. Yep.
What are you most concerned about?
That I won't be able to control myself. And that I'll whip out my phone. Yeah, totally. That's what I'm most concerned about.
That could happen.
It's this kind of, It's
How are you
going
to prevent it?
I don't know. I'm just going to have to talk myself down.
Well, how about just not having your phone on you?
Well, I have to have my phone on me.
But leave it at your desk when you go to meetings.
But I have to have it with me in my meetings in case I'm needed by anybody.
What? Really?
Yeah.
You can't just not have it on you.
Right. I mean, what happens if like a child gets injured and and Kendra calls me?
Well, do you need to be there immediately?
probably need to respond because I work like an hour away from home.
I guess. I mean, if my child's injured, I find out about it at the end of my meeting.
No, my family takes precedence over everything, Julie. That's the difference between me and you.
Are you one of those jerks who, like, in the middle of every meeting, you're just constantly glancing at your phone?
Yes.
Oh, that's a pet peeve
Totally
of mine.
right.
And I do it too. Did I tell you I put hash marks at the top of my notebook every time I look at my phone? It's because I've been trying to decrease that.
No, hash marks. Wait, on the top of your phone?
No, on top of like my notepad, like where I take notes, like a physical piece of paper.
Wow.
Anyway, so right now I usually look at my phone just once per every meeting.
Wow, very good. So what are you worried most about?
Eating food. Like, I really like reading a book on my Kindle while I eat lunch. That's a really, really nice time for me. And I'm worried about not having that.
So do you think it's going to like change your dietary habit?
No, I think I'm just not going to be happy during lunch.
God. All right. Well, cool. Well, Julie, if any of those things should happen to you, please give me a call during the interim.
Well, maybe I will continue to read books while I eat my lunch, but I won't look at my phone.
I think that makes sense. Yeah,
Okay.
we're giving up killing time with screen time. Yep.
And I'm not killing time. I'm making a deliberate choice to relax and read a book. But
That's
I won't
absolutely
look
true.
at like Facebook and stuff like that.
Absolutely true. And the deliberate choice about Kendra and I are going to watch TV after the kids go to sleep, we're still going to do that.
Right.
You know, that kind of thing. Right.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Okay, will do. I will talk to you in a couple weeks, but everyone else is going to listen to the pleasure kills for a few seconds, and then we'll be right back.
This is Mike from the 40 Going on 14 podcast. I am calling because you asked about what we do to kill time, like waiting in line or at the store or something like that. Personally, my favorite thing is to make up conversations for two people talking that I can see but not hear.
This is Blooper Boy. When I can actually look at my phone, then I will spend my otherwise bored time reading stuff that is on the internet and just finding stories and reading those.
I'm Nancy from the Witch Hunt podcast and from the soon-to-be-released Teachers Anonymous podcast. If I'm waiting in line in the grocery store, I like to look in other people's carts and use the contents of their carts to make decisions about their lives. I will look and see if it's a bunch of teenage kids and they have chips, dips, and candy. I'm thinking, are their parents going away and are they having a party?
Brian from the Nothing Imported podcast. Like any man worth of salt, one of my favorite things to do is just annoy my wife. And my favorite method of doing so is look at my wife and say, honey, do you want to hear how many cuss words I know?
This is Cal from the Bottom podcast, and I kill time by people watching because there's a lot of interesting people out there.
Thank you, Mike, Blooper Boy, Nancy, Brian, and Cal.
Hey, Julie, welcome back. It's lovely to be back here, podcast listeners.
So, Mark, are you back using your phone for entertainment?
Yes.
How was it?
Well, except during meetings. It was the worst thing ever. I think it was probably worse than, it was worse than giving up sarcasm and swearing and even the standing episode, giving up sitting.
Me?
No, when I would use my phone periodically for various functions, but just that feeling, that itch of wanting to take it out and look at it gave me like a feeling in my head and in my heart, like loss.
Oh, because you still had it within arm's length, like at
Oh,
all
yeah,
times.
sure. Yes, absolutely right.
That's where you went wrong.
Well, come on. There's people that need me. I'm popular.
Okay, fair enough, but still.
Yeah, so it was really hard, but, I would highly recommend this. Some things that I did to help myself were when I have like a little mini koosh ball, which is now lost. I have to buy another one. But I had that at meetings just to have something like texture-y to kind of mess with. Right, to try to stay focused. And that was extremely helpful.
You talked about something like that last time, the anti-phone block or
the
something?
no phone.
The no phone, yeah.
Right, the no phone. I think a no phone would be like ideal.
I'll sell you one for $100.
Really? I think they cost like $5 or something.
I'll crochet you something.
Really? Something
Yeah,
weighted?
sure.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Cool. Yeah, so during meetings, it was actually really great. And I found that I was more focused on what everybody was saying because I actually just had my phone put away in my pocket. And I even closed my laptop screen except when I was specifically taking notes. And I just was really trying to be mindful about what was going on in the moment around me and listening to everybody and trying to interact and felt like I was really interacting at a higher level.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was really great. So one of my big learnings is that I'm going to keep up with that. I've got to get myself another koosh ball because I can't do it without the koosh. I need something to like keep my hands busy. Otherwise, I'm going to be fumbling for my phone or something. But
isn't koosh like a slang for pot too?
I have no idea. Koosh ball.
Okay.
You know what a koosh ball is, right?
I do know what a koosh ball is. Yes. Okay. And I'm sure our listeners will write in and let us know.
All right.
But okay, so what about like in social situations at work? Right.
Well, yeah. And so then at home, I got into the cycle, or I would get into the cycle with my phone where I'd be helping my 8-year-old go to bed, help her through bath and, brush her hair and all this stuff. And there are times during that cycle where she needs my help for real.
Yeah. Like rinsing out conditioner and stuff.
Yes, exactly. That kind of thing. Or like, hey, you're going to be burning through your book reading time if you don't get out of the tub soon.
Right,
just to remind her to move
management.
forward, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Project manager.
Project management, bath project management stuff. So like I would take out my phone while she was doing some tasks that I wasn't involved with and then wouldn't realize she was done with the task. So then the task would take longer and we'd be sitting there in the bathroom and I would eventually...
It was all your fault.
Yes, for not being a good project manager. So with this... It was really hard because there literally wasn't anything to do and I didn't have my koosh ball around.
Nothing to do except interact with your child.
Right. Totally weird, awkward. No, it's not at all. It's really quite wonderful. And so there was lots of better conversations and things that we had and talked about during this time period. So yeah, I highly recommend it. Again, it was really, really, really hard for me.
Yeah.
But I highly recommend it. And then as far as social situations go, you know that thing where people take out their phone, they don't look at it, but they put it face down on the table in front of them?
Yep.
It's basically a sign, and I think we've talked about this before, that phone is more important than anything else around them.
Right.
So that's what I would typically do because in general, in general, I never really intended it for it to be that way, but that's kind of the way I guess that that's the way I treated it. So I wouldn't do that. I would leave it in my pocket during lunches out with coworkers or that sort of thing. And again, it made me more just mindful of my surroundings and more integrated into the conversation. And I found that I was wearing a watch. This is really dumb. And people are probably like, what? You don't wear a watch? Yeah. So Dad gave me a really cool watch to wear just recently.
Is it a skeleton watch?
No, it's like a 1950s wind-up watch. It's really awesome.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But I found that because I wasn't looking at my cell phone, I wasn't able to check the time.
Oh, right.
And I didn't want to take my cell phone out and check the time and be that's a gateway
on your
drug.
phone. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's
right.
While I'm here, I may as well check Facebook.
Exactly right. So I put my watch on, or I was wearing a watch around, and that really helped me from looking at my phone because I could, just check the time on this amazing invention that was just on my wrist. It was incredible. So I actually did try a bit of technology to help me wean from the phone.
Okay.
I forget what the app's name was. I wasn't very successful with it, but the idea behind it is that you start it up and then it grows a little plant over a period of time. And if you switch from that app to any other app, the plant starts to die. And so I could never do it. I would look at I would have it there kind of next to me at my desk or in meetings or whatever. And I would look at it and think, oh, there's that thing. Oh, that's interesting. And then my phone would just speak to me and call to me and want me to touch it. And so then I would start using my phone. So for me, I didn't really care about killing the plant.
You needed a puppy.
I needed an electric shock up my arm to help me not to touch my phone.
I'm sure that exists.
I'm sure it does. So, Julie, for me, I think the experience was fantastic, and I've definitely learned some things that I'm going to keep trying to go with. And hopefully all of my coworkers and family felt like I was more involved with them and continue to be so.
For me, it was also really awesome. I found I was reading a whole bunch because that was my new, way of not procrastinating or killing time with screens. But also I did some knitting. I carried my knitting around with me in my purse for those socially awkward times, like while at a Cub Scouts meeting, the other moms just are chit-chatting with each other.
Right.
And so I just pulled out my knitting, and I found I was engaging on conversations so much more than I normally would. Even though I appear like an extroverted person, like everybody else, I get awkward at times. And the other moms are super cool. And so it was fun just sitting around and talking with them. And so that was exciting. And in other contexts like that too, I think the kids really appreciated this one. They're always saying things like, when you're on your phone talking to both Olaf and me, again, Olaf is what my husband's name that he would prefer to be called on the podcast, that nobody knows who he really is.
That was a long parenthetical. Go ahead.
Okay, so when Olaf and I are on our phones, the kids are like, you don't even hear us when you're looking at your phones, which is probably totally true. Olaf, if you're listening to this, I think it's especially true for you. So it was good. And in meetings, I just didn't even bring my devices with me. So it was much easier for me than I'm sure it was for you. You might want to consider, Mark, having two separate devices, one that is just a work device that you can get email on, and one that's your own personal one. Like maybe next time you're ready for, well, gosh, I don't know. I mean, does your work pay for your phones? Well, we could talk about that later. Anyway, it's something you might want to consider if the pain of not looking at your phone becomes too much.
Yeah.
Or get a beeper.
What's a beeper? Nobody says that.
How
old are you? Pager.
Pager.
A beeper? Really?
Isn't that what they were called mostly?
God.
Okay, fine. Sorry to offend your sensibilities, Mr. Born in like practically the 60s, but almost. Okay, so there were 3 times.
Missed it by 5 months.
There are 3 times that I found it really, really hard. One was, like you were saying, just when you're waiting for the kids. So my oldest got a gift card for Toys R Us and wanted to pick out a Skylander. So the parents out there with kids who are Skylander age can imagine what comes next. It was his agony in Toys R Us looking at all these Skylanders, which are just these little components that fit into a video game, but they look like action figures and they're super cool.
Right.
I wanted to put a stick in my eye. And I even at one point, I like physically separated myself from where he was standing because he would come at me with questions like, hey, Mom, which one do you think is more powerful? Or can you tell which element this one is? And if I had my phone, I'd be like, oh, I'm busy right now. I'm doing a thing for work. And I would probably lie a little bit.
So you couldn't think of any good way to extricate yourself from his questions and just let him pick?
I stood far away. I probably would have taken out my knitting if I'd had it with me. But I wanted nothing to do with this purchase or purchase decision. And there were no chairs. It was Toys R Us. So that was mildly painful, but still, I mean, we're talking first world problems here, right?
Right.
The other is like waiting for coffee or waiting in line at Starbucks, that kind of thing where I'm just standing around Starbucks and I would normally, I just felt that itch that you were talking about of my phone is in my purse. And I bet there's some great tweets out there that I need to read.
Well, it's so interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, and I don't know what you're going to say. Maybe it was this.
No, you don't, because you can't read my mind.
I am a psychologist. Just kidding. That's what people always mix up. What were you going to say?
No, go ahead, please.
Well, I was going to say my big insight about that was there was nothing that like I missed in these couple of weeks where I was like, oh, if only I'd had my phone, I would have seen this really brilliant post on Facebook earlier. I mean, no, I totally had enough time to catch up on Facebook eventually. There was nothing that I missed. I didn't spend nearly as much time on Facebook and Twitter as I normally do. And I was fine for that. There was no big thing I missed. But the final really hard time was on the toilet.
Oh, do you take your phone on the toilet?
Yeah.
Gross.
You don't?
No, of course I do. Everybody does. We just don't talk about it.
Well, I'm going to talk about it. I really.
The worst is when you know that somebody's using their phone at a urinal. Oh, God, I can't stand that one. God.
I really missed having my phone with me while I was in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So I'll just leave it there.
Okay, thank you for that.
The end.
The end. I think that's so interesting, like these things like going to Starbucks or doing things where you're going to be in line.
Yeah.
That's not unanticipated, is it? I guess it's kind of a gray area.
Yeah.
Like,
I
for
don't
instance,
think,
the interview
I'm gonna
that...
go to Starbucks and read Facebook.
Well, no, but you think, I'm going to go to Starbucks, and it's going to take at least 3 to 5 minutes to get my drink.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? You should have just anticipated that and planned to read a book during that time period or knit.
Got my knitting out.
Right.
Are you going to keep this up?
You know, I'm going to try to as much as possible. I got to get
Me
myself
too.
a new koosh ball, maybe 2, one for home and one for the office.
It's a good idea. I'm going to keep it up too. There's probably, I mean, maybe the bathrooming. We'll see. Well, I'm not going to. Okay, sorry. I said I wouldn't talk about that anymore.
Just be sure to desanitize or sanitize your phone afterward. I guess going to the bathroom with it is desanitizing it. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. The end. Oh, wait. Before we do anything else, can I give a shout out to our listeners who supported the Olympia Charter for Compassion?
Yeah, go for it.
The combining of all the faith communities and Olympia churches and the synagogue and I think Unitarian and
Cool.
maybe a mosque. I can't remember. But they got together and developed this really beautiful proposal to help our community engage in peaceful and productive dialogue. It's at onlycompassion.org. And Mark and I have made the decision that for the time being, we're not going to accept any paid sponsors except for maybe Diet Pepsi. We're considering it.
Diet Pepsi, really?
That's what you said last time.
I changed, maybe like Diet Coke.
All right, whatever.
Or
we'll figure it out.
Roomba.
Okay, we'll workshop that.
Okay.
But at any rate, instead we want to use our ad time to promote social change organizations and other organizations that we feel strongly about, like some of our local food banks and shelters. So if there's an organization you feel strongly about, let us know. Email us at wagonpodcast@gmail.com or just connect with us on Facebook and Twitter at wagonpod, just like you can to hear more about the show. And you can also view our show notes and contact us on wagonpod.com. We're interested in other suggestions, especially if you have a point of contact for us. I also want to thank the Pleasure Kills for the use of our theme music, as always. Thank you for the song Modern Problems, and thanks to our family and our amazing listeners. You guys are so awesome. But especially awesome is the user Mafia Live equals good, who I love that name, who left us an iTunes review. So thank you so much, whoever you are. Everyone who's left us iTunes reviews, if you send us a message with your address, we will send you.
Are you going to read the iTunes review for us?
I will. Just a second. This is another parenthetical thing.
Okay.
Please send us your mailing address and we will ship you a Station Wagon Podcast sticker. Anyway, Mafia Live equals good said the Station Wagon Podcast is smart, creative, and funny. This is one of the most creative ideas in podcasting. They take a smart approach to each topic. They have a great chemistry. I think they're talking about me there. And tremendous
How
wit.
can you have chemistry
Definitely.
by yourself?
Definitely talking about me. One of my favorite indie shows. Hey, they even know we're from Indie.
That's awesome.
You're a stupid, dumb face if you don't listen. Oh, and indie is spelled I-N-D-I-E. That was just me making a dumb joke.
Yeah, so were you the dumb face?
Maybe. Anyway.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank you, Mafia Live equals good.
No. Okay.
Is that really their name? Mafia Live equals good?
That's their name.
That's really
cool.
cool.
Look at the agenda. I pasted it there.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, cool.
Yes, I'm not making this up.
No,
that is
you couldn't
their
make up stuff
God-given
like
name.
that. Right.
No. I talk to their parents, find out more about it.
Yeah, right.
Mafia
totally.
Live equals good. If you'd like to give us the backstory, let us know.
That'd be great.
Okay, so next time.
Next time, Julie, oh my gosh, this is going to be awesome.
We're giving up deliberately being funny, which for Mark won't be a challenge at all.
Oh God, that's exactly what Kendra says.
Okay, so we will hear all about that next time.
Giving up deliberately being funny, starting now.
And nah, nah, nah.
That's amazing. Thank you.